Right, this video is actually a request from one of you. It is about how to light a kitchen using your two lights and the positioning of your windows. I've taken a guess at your layout. I might be wrong, apologize, but what I've got is my fridge, got my cooker and like these cupboards and the sink above the window. This is the window. This is a glass door that you mentioned you had. And this is me presuming there's probably another door into a corridor or something. Now you said that this is north facing and this is east facing. So we've got our south and west over here, obviously. And you want to create a moody light that's consistent as the actors move around the room. And you wanted a hard light through the window and a soft light through the door. So I'm gonna I'm just making this up as I go along, but this is how I would go about that situation. And the first thing I'd be doing is with a hard light, you generally need less power. And I'd be looking at that 60 watt to be the hard light rather than the 100 watt. Potentially, but I'm gonna do that first, and I'll explain another way I might approach this. So let's say that's going to be our 60 watt light, and then we want over here to this to be our 100 watt light, and you want this to be soft. So maybe using some sort of like material in front of the door, or maybe it's frosted. The challenge you have is obviously as we move away from this, the harder it's going to be to get that contrast ratio, right? You've made that point already. So what can you do about this? This really comes about understanding both practicals, about neg and about blocking, and also though about how you can subtly use these in slightly creative ways. So the first thing I would be doing though, is I would be probably adding some sort of neg around these cupboards, if you can, to try and create some contrast. And then when we're moving away from these lights over here, I'd be looking to have a lamp or something on the counter over there. So if I'm always filming from this side, then I've got, wherever I go, I've got a lamp, I've got 100 watt soft over here, and I've got my hard light. I'll generally be in an okay place. The thing with this though, is that we can be a bit more creative about how we use this. So rather than just saying add neg, add a lamp, what you can do instead is with a hard light, let's just, for argument's sake, right? If you were to put the 100 watt over here, you can use it as a hard slash soft light. If you have, let's say, some shears here, but you let part of it come through hard. And what that means is that you'll have a higher contrast ratio over here, whereas it'd be softer over here. So if I knew, as an example, I was going to be filming something by the sink, right? And I was going to place my camera here. I want that to be soft, and that's going to come through here. To be honest, north facing is generally like a quite nice, constant, moody overtone, although there's a problem that I'll mention in a minute. But if I knew I was then going to swing around to my camera over here somehow, like pointing up into the room that way, I'm going to want this, you know, this hard beam coming through, and it'll be more like a backlight. And that's when I would just be using my 60 watt over here just to fill in that little pocket of light there. So it's about blocking depending on where your scene is taking place. If you're thinking, well, I want them cooking and there's no lights there, you're in a bit of a tough spot, to be honest, because all of your light is backlight. So in that case, what I'd be doing is I'd be trying to put in some sort of reflector above the cooker to bounce back some of that light, even just like a white sheet or something, as long as it doesn't catch fire. Or just using, if you're like cooking with a gas fire, you can use a bit of that. But when you're talking about color temperature, my inclination is generally just daylight and then tungsten lamps on the inside. But you could set these to tungsten as well, and then have a tungsten lamp. And then if you do that, you can make everything look one consistent color, especially as your cooker probably has a tungsten light on top of it. So if you want it all to look one color, then set these to tungsten. But if you want a bit of color contrast, set them to daylight and these to tungsten. Now, with the ceiling light, if you have a ceiling light, if you really, really want to have a bit more exposure, that light is going to spill. It's going to be ugly, most likely. If there is a way though, let's say you have one of those Chinese lantern balls where you can just add a little skirt around it, where you can create a pocket in the middle of the room, then really it's just all about blocking. So you have one scene take place here, then you walk into the middle of the room, you have another scene take place there, but you frame them like looking up, maybe on the phone call, and then you come around over here and you're swinging in that way. That's how I would kind of go about this scene. Now, I'm gonna caveat all of this a little bit by just saying, if you're filming that way, with the north facing room window, the issue you might have is, depending on what you're seeing out here, this is me presuming you're in the UK. Apologies if you're not. If you're somewhere else, and maybe it's different. So let me know, then maybe I have to do a new video. But you might see your landscape in the background, it's really bright. It might be that your sun is swinging this way and basically blasting light on the outside. Now that happens, then what you could do is, first off, then you want to bring your exposure down so we get that to the right place. And then everything inside is going to probably feel a bit too silhouette-y, a bit too moody. So if that's the case, then maybe, depending how you can rig it out of the way, I would be instead focusing on maybe trying to just bring my lights together, my 60 and my 100, that's going to look really dodgy, and like reflecting them or bouncing them, or like diffusing them from one corner of the room, and just trying to avoid seeing that corner quite so much. But the alternative to that, and I'm giving you a few options, just kind of try them all, see what works. That's the thing with cinematography, you have to just give it a go. You can get a piece of neg, like ND filter, that you can put across a window. So you could ND the window. Let's say you don't have a, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's that expensive to buy a roll of ND. Or even here, you could just block out that door, just have it looking dark. If you want to have some of that level taken off from outside, if you don't want to see outside, you know. So generally speaking, you do, and it's fine. It just means like you're then turning this all into very, very shadowy, which when you're talking about wanting mood and contrast, there's a difference between mood and underexposed. So it's a fine balance. But my personal gut, if I was doing this, it would be, I'd probably be having a light here with part of it diffused, part of it not. And I mean, depending on the weather, if the natural light was good enough, I'd be having that all natural, or maybe just something for a bit of consistency. The door is probably harder because I presume the door is frosted. So that's gonna not, that light's not gonna come through quite as much. But it also means you can probably get a light out there and not really know what's happening. So I'd maybe be thinking about, well, if I've got nice natural soft light here, if I want a bit more of a kick, more of a punch, I'll be punching it through the door. I don't know if any of that makes sense. I don't know if you go, well, that's just too many options. But try them, work with them. Lamps are always great. Just bear in mind, any lights on the oven or on the ceiling are probably going to flicker. So you might just need to adjust your shutter speed a little bit. All right, good luck.